She was standing at the front of the conference room holding my presentation deck when she said it. This concept was entirely my vision, she told 30 people. I developed it from scratch over the past 4 months. I was sitting in the third row. She knew I was there. She looked right at me when she said it. My name is Vivian Cross. I'm 38. I'm a marketing strategist at a mid-sized logistics company in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been there 6 years. I handle campaign development, brand positioning, and the kind of detailed market research that most people find boring, but I genuinely love. I'm good at my job, in a quiet way. Not the kind of person who announces wins, just the kind who produces them consistently and figures someone will eventually notice. I'm also the only person in my department who still takes handwritten notes in every meeting. Old habit from college. My notebooks go back years. Dates, decisions, drafts, feedback, conversations. I never thought much about it until the day it became the most important thing I owned. I'm not someone who walks into a room and commands it. I drive a 2016 Toyota Camry, pack a lunch 3 days a week, and take the long way home when I need to think. I'd been passed over for promotion twice before this happened. Both times I was told to be patient. Both times I nodded and went back to work. But this time was different. This time I had documentation going back 4 months, and I was done being patient. Before I go into what happened, tell me where you're watching from. Seriously, drop it in the comments. I always wonder how far these things travel. And if someone has ever taken credit for your work, subscribe. You need to hear how this one ends. The project was called the Meridian Campaign. It was a full brand relaunch strategy for one of our biggest distribution clients. New messaging, new visual direction, a 12-month rollout plan. I'd been assigned to it in January by our director, Philip. Just me, initially. It was mine to develop. I worked on it for 3 months, nights, weekends, a Saturday in February where I sat in the Panera booth from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon building the audience segmentation model. I have the receipt. $14.73, small dark roast, a U-Pick 2, and 3 hours of uninterrupted focus. In month 2, my coworker Sasha was added to the project to help with the design components. She was newer to the team, 2 years in, sharp, personable, the kind of person who was always in the right conversation at the right time. I didn't mind the help. We divided the work clearly. I handled strategy and research. She handled visual assets and layout. What I didn't realize was that she had been having separate conversations with Philip about the campaign, private ones, shaping a narrative where her contributions were central and mine were supplementary. I found out the day of the presentation. I walked into that conference room expecting to co-present. My name wasn't on the slide deck, not on the title page, not in the acknowledgments, not anywhere. When I quietly asked Sasha about it before the room filled up, she tilted her head slightly and said, "Philip thought it made more sense to have one clear lead. You understand." I sat down. I watched her present my research, my audience framework, my 12-month strategy in a room full of people who had no reason to know it wasn't hers. I watched her answer questions using language I recognized because I had written it. And I watched Philip nod at the back of the room with the expression of someone watching something go exactly as planned. That was betrayal 1. Betrayal 2 came 10 days later. The promotion posting went up internally. Senior brand strategist. The role I had been building toward for 2 years. Philip called me into his office and told me he was recommending Sasha because she had demonstrated strong leadership and creative ownership on the Meridian campaign. I kept my face still. I thanked him for letting me know. On the way back to my desk, I stopped in the women's restroom, locked the door, and stood at the sink for about 90 seconds. Then I washed my hands, went to my desk, and opened my notebook. Betrayal 3 was the smallest and somehow the worst. At the company-wide announcement the following week, Sasha was introduced to the broader team as the architect of the Meridian campaign. There was applause, someone brought a cake. I watched from the back of the room while people I'd worked alongside for 6 years congratulated her for something I had built. Nobody looked at me. I ate a small piece of cake and went back to my desk. What none of them knew was that I had 4 months of documentation that told a completely different story. Every notebook entry was dated and timestamped. Every draft I'd emailed to myself from my personal account had a send time and subject line. The original creative brief, written entirely by me, was saved in 3 places, including a Google Doc with a version history showing my edits from January 8th through March 22nd, well before Sasha was added to the project. I also had something else, something I hadn't planned to need. In week 3 of the project, Philip sent me an email saying, and I'm quoting this from memory, "Good early progress, Vivian. This is your project to own. Keep driving it." 11 words. I'd never deleted that email. I'd been quietly building a file for 2 weeks by the time I called my mentor, a woman named Claudette. She'd been in corporate communications for 25 years and had left our company 3 years ago to consult independently. She knew our organization, she knew Philip, and she had been wronged by the same culture in ways she'd told me about once, carefully, over lunch at a Thai restaurant in Buckhead. I sent Claudette everything. Every document, every email, the notebook photos, the Google Doc history. I called her back the same evening. "Vivian," she said, "this is an HR case, not a conversation, a case." She helped me organize the materials into a formal presentation. Not a complaint, a documented record. Claudette also connected me with an employment attorney named Frank, who reviewed everything and confirmed I had grounds to pursue a formal internal grievance and, if necessary, a claim related to misattribution of work product. I filed the HR grievance on a Monday morning. I hand-delivered a printed copy to our HR director, a woman named Brenda, who had always seemed fair in my limited interactions with her. I also emailed it with read receipts. By Thursday, Brenda had requested a meeting with me, Philip, and Sasha. Together. I walked into that conference room with 2 printed copies of my documentation and Claudette waiting on a phone line I could access if needed. Philip opened by saying the situation was a miscommunication around project ownership. I slid the email across the table. His email, the one that said, "This is your project to own." He looked at it. Sasha looked at her hands. I didn't say anything extra. I just let the document sit there. The investigation took 3 weeks. At the end of it, the company issued a formal correction. My name was added to the Meridian campaign's official record as lead strategist. Sasha's promotion was put on hold pending review. Philip received what HR described as documented counseling. I was offered the senior brand strategist role 2 months later. I took it. Sasha is still at the company. We're professional with each other. That's all it needs to be. Philip treats me differently now, more carefully, which is its own kind of acknowledgement. What I know now is that documentation isn't distrust. It's dignity. When you do real work, record it. Not because you expect betrayal, but because your work deserves a record. Date your drafts. Keep your emails. Write things down. Your work has a history. Make sure you're the one holding it. If someone has ever stolen your work, your idea, or your credit, I want to hear about it in the comments. Drop your story below. You are not invisible, and you are not wrong for wanting recognition for what you built. Subscribe to this channel and share this with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Click Hype to help this story reach every person who's ever sat in the back row watching someone else take credit. They need to know there's another way. Did this story hit home? Let me know by liking the video and sharing your thoughts in the comments to help this story find others who felt the same way. Your support makes a huge difference.